So I wanted to talk for my first show, the Free Aztlan. Welcome once again to Free Aztlan. And I wanted to talk on this show about a topic specifically about agent provocateurs. So this is a very important topic. It's very important for people anybody who's involved in any kind of organizing work, whether that is organizing in a political organization, political party, cultural group, any kind of group where people come together, community organizations, revolutionary cadre organizations, any kind of committees, any group within the community that is organizing to better their environments, better the community, they're going to face at some point agent provocateurs. So I wanted to discuss agent provocateurs because uh, a lot of people, a lot of people don't know about them. They don't know what they are, and this is out in the community. But being that I have a long history of I'm previously formerly incarcerated, and I was held in the concentration camps for many years, as some of you all know, including in the shoes in the California's security housing units and what have you. Even in prison, there's agent provocateurs. Agent provocateurs, um, the behavior of these people can be found in any environment, prisons, out in the community, in the barrios, in the hoods, what have you, and so it's very important that we understand what agent provocateurs are, because at some point or another, anybody who's coming together with a group of people will face these individuals. So it's important to understand who they are, what they do, and find different ways to combat their what they try to do to the groups. So let me just say that agent provocateurs, these are individuals who are sent mostly by the state. Many times they're state agents. They're people who the state or quote unquote law enforcement may send into different groups or organizations. Um, and again, these could be lumpen organizations, they can be political organizations, what have you. And what they do is they send these individuals in to create turmoil, chaos, to basically disrupt and to destroy the group. So that this is very important. When it comes and I'll go over a few different scenarios, but agent provocateurs, when it comes to political parties, one of the things that they do, and we learn this through history, we learn it by studying other organizations who've underwent different struggles, and we learn about things like agent provocateurs. If we're talking about, let's refer back to a group everybody knows of, a political organization, revolutionary organization, the Black Panther Party. Black Panther Party, the history of the Black Panther Party, just like many other groups, but they have such a deep history that we're able to study them on different levels. One of the levels that is very interesting about the Black Panther Party is that they were infiltrated, just like many other groups were of the time and today. But a lot of their history is found in different books that have been published about the party. There is a lot of evidence taken from Freedom of Information Act, where people have gotten previously classified documents that were, that the FBI had, and so we learned some of the methods, some of the behaviors, some of the things that the state has used, and in particular the agent provocateurs, some of the behaviors, some of the things they have done. And we learning from the history of different organizations and how agent provocateurs were used. Um, you know, one of the things that they do is they will get into a group and they will promote violence. They will try to basically pump up the members to commit violent acts. This is one of the things that an agent provocateur may do. It's not saying that agent provocateur has to do this. It's one of the things that they do. And so if you're working in a group, one of the ways you can spot and identify an agent provocateur is one of the things that they do is, let's say there's an agent provocateur in a group or organization. One of the things this person may do is incite violence and may say, hey, let's go over here and do this to this person or that person. Maybe it's at an action, at a protest, at a rally, and this person might say, hey, let's go do this to this person. Another thing that they may do is they may promote doing other things like robberies, selling drugs. They may try to sell guns to you or give you guns, or give people in the group weapons or drugs, what have you. And they do this because this is one of the ways that the state, the pigs, the police can then arrest these individuals. So the agent provocateur is sent into the group, or at some point or another, may be a part of a group, and at some point gets turned. Maybe this person, this agent provocateur, it happens to be driving down the street, gets pulled over with a $30 sack of drugs on him, and is about to go to jail. And guess what? Makes a deal with the pigs. Hey, I'll give you information on this group or these people or this person, specific person, if you let me go. And so at some point or another, the agent provocateur, if it was somebody, either they got turned, they got flipped, they were, agreed to work with the state, or they were deliberately sent into this group to do these things. And so they'll get people within the group. Usually it's people that the state, the pigs, are targeting. Like, we need this person. We want to arrest this person. The agent provocateur will go in there, make contact with the person, befriend the person, and then they will try to engage this person in illegal activity. Get the person to, hey, here's some drugs, or hey, you want to buy, you want to sell drugs, or hey, here's a gun, you can have it, or you want to buy a gun, or I'll sell you a gun. Whatever may be the case, let's go over here and commit this act or that act, or assault this person. Whatever may be the case, the prime goal of the agent provocateur is to get the specific target to commit acts that this person can be arrested for. Once the person takes the drugs, or agrees to sell the drugs, or takes the gun, or what have you, or assaults the person, the agent provocateur will then notify the police, and when the police go to pull the person over or go to search their house, they find exactly what the agent provocateur had said. There was a case in the Black Panther Party where there was an agent provocateur in a meeting. The person had, there was a rally of some type of organizing. And one of the things the person did, I believe, I read somewhere where the person fired gunshots in the air, and of course the whole rally, the whole organizing action was labeled as criminal, because now it's like, oh, the Black Panthers come and, or this group or that group arrives, and they're firing gunshots at people. So now in the news, it's blasted like, oh, this specific group or this organization showed up and started firing. People from the group started firing at the crowd or firing at people. So these acts, these agent provocateurs, they'll slip in with the group and then commit these acts of what's considered criminal acts. And as a result, the entire group will be labeled as criminal. So this is another thing that they do, again, in reading somewhere what Agent Provocateur did with the Black Panthers, there was an event or action somewhere taking place. This Agent Provocateur leaves the group, goes off and with somebody else from the group and robs a gas station. So now it's being reported that members of the group went and did this armed robbery. As a result, it's blasted in the news like this group are criminals because they're over here robbing and stealing, when in actuality it was an agent provocateur who did it, who went in there and did it. So there's a lot of things that these agent provocateurs do that we have to keep an eye on. We have to be aware of. Anytime anybody who's organizing in the community knows that the time is not ripe for any struggle outside of building consciousness at this moment. Raising consciousness, re-educating the people, re-educating the masses. This is what is needed. And any kind of struggle on outside of that, conditions are definitely not ripe for armed struggle today. That's that would be a big mistake. The conditions, the social conditions are not they're not ripe for such a form of struggle. And so anybody advocating for that at this point, it's just not. It's just going to bring down a level of repression that would totally neutralize and stop any kind of forward progression from any group at this time. So there's struggle, but in this stage, it's all about raising consciousness and building, educating, re-educating the people. And this is one of the reasons I started this Free Aztlan on YouTube is, for those viewers who are familiar with my radio program, Free Aztlan, every Tuesdays at 8 to 9 p.m. On KEXU 96.1 FM. They know that, this is what my media is about. It's about educating. It's about raising consciousness. It's about promoting the Chicano nation, promoting the idea of a liberated Aztlan, and ultimately about freeing Aztlan. So, before anything can take place in the physical realm, it has to be done in the, in the mental realm. It has to be done in the theoretical realm. You have to have theory in order to understand what kind of practice is going to be needed to accomplish what you're trying to set out and accomplish. So, this is the main thing. But agent provocateurs is something that we have to be aware of. And the state sends these agent provocateurs to these different groups and organizations in order to destroy them, right? That's their whole point, is to create chaos, create factionalism, create splits. So these agent provocateurs may enter a group or organization and then, identify people who threaten them and, get them kicked out of the group or organization. That's one of the things they do. Another thing is, as I said, the state sends them in there to get certain leaders arrested. It's very, and they get in there and they might, hey, let me spend a night at your house, or hey, can you give me a ride? And the person gives them, the agent provocateur, a ride. They slide a gun or something under the person's seat, and then they notify the pigs, notify the police. So as a result, they've just gotten this person arrested, a target of the state. And it's usually one of the leaders of this group, or one of a person of influence. So this is why they create these agent provocateurs, and so the state does it, the government, the state, the police, and also other groups. Other groups may send in agent provocateurs into other organizations in order to create splits, go in there and destroy them. And that's a possibility too. Get in this group and destroy them, create factionalism, talk to certain people, get them, to disagree with the other half of the group. Because every group, they're in every single group or organization, there's always going to be usually, two or more camps. There's people that disagree. There's contradictions amongst the people in every group or organization. And that's why it's very important that, people are educated and aware of agent provocateurs in order to spot, identify, and deal with that situation. Otherwise, it will poison a group. Another reason that agent provocateurs pop up, and it may be a group that is in opposition of a certain organization or movement. Let's say, for example, the white supremacists. Let's say, for example, one of these white supremacist groups wants to infiltrate the Chicano movement. So what they do is they get one of their members, and they ask their members to join one of the Chicano organizations as an agent provocateur. This person's role would be to enter the organization or group or unit, would create turmoil within the group, have people fighting against each other, spreading gossip and rumors. Hey, they're saying this about you. So-and-so told me this. So-and-so said that, in order to create these splits. Another thing that they can do is create all-out fights with other groups or units within the movement. This would be, a typical of an agent provocateur. Another thing is they may be conversating with somebody from another organization and discussing a third party who may be a very good person, man or woman, who's dedicated to the movement, dedicated to struggling to end oppression. And they may falsely label that person as, somebody who's not on the right side of history, somebody who, has no, loyalty to the people. So this is another way that, Malcolm X once said that you got to be careful, because, the state, the oppressor nation will have you thinking that your friends are your enemies and your enemies are your friends. So that's a good lesson from Malcolm X, and, I am a fan of Malcolm X, and, he raised his consciousness, raised his awareness from prison, and got out and continued to serve his people, serve the Black nation. So I have unity with Malcolm on his love for his people. And so the agent provocateurs in prison as well. There's agent provocateurs, in prison. It's the same thing. These they could be informants, just like they could be out here. There could be informants in prison, and their role, just like the role out here, is to get to a certain prison, get to a certain yard, infiltrate that yard, learn who is the leadership, create factionalism, try to split the unity of the certain group that they're targeting, and feed the pigs information, feed the police information on what the group is doing, planning, and so these agent provocateurs, the same thing. Slide you a shank and then go tell the guards on you. So agent provocateurs can be found anywhere people are organizing, and as we know, prisons are a hotbed for organizing the people. This is where people perfect their skills of organizing. This is where real organizing takes place. For those who haven't entered the concentration camps, but so agent provocateurs. What if agent provocateurs were allowed to not just exist, but to flourish out in the organizations, political parties, and different groups and units? What if they were allowed to just flourish, just exist, and keep doing what they do? What can happen? Well, one of the things that can happen is it can kill a movement. It could kill a group. It could kill an organization. It can totally neutralize any kind of progressive movement. And so, what these agent provocateurs do is they will identify leadership, identify those who have influence in the group, get them sent to prison, get them sent to jail, have them they can have them killed. They can have people hurt very badly. And these are the leaders of our movement. This is the leaders of our community and our nations. And this is some of the stuff that they can accomplish. They can also give so-called law enforcement, vital information, inside information about a specific leader or person of influence. And this helps with the state's profiling of this individual, because in many cases, when somebody's targeted, they're being hunted. So just think about that for a second. When somebody's being hunted, if you go hunting, and I'm not promoting hunting of animals, but if somebody goes out bear hunting, well, you don't just walk into a forest with no knowledge whatsoever of bears. You're not going to do so well in your hunting expedition. So the thing that's a hunter of bears is going to do is going to know the psychology of bears. What, in the spring, what are they normally doing? In the winter, what are they normally? Well, at this time of the year, they're usually up in these mountains, hibernating or sleeping most of the day, and they're up at night. And then in this part of the season, they're usually down in the water, and then they, usually swim in the water for 2-3 hours a day. You could catch them in the morning. Same thing with fishing. In the mornings is good, 4 or 5 a.m. It's good. So, when people are being targeted for their activism or being leaders in the community, people are doing the same thing. The enemy is doing the same thing, and the oppressor is doing the same thing, and they need to know the psychology of certain people. Well, this person usually does this, he does that, he likes this, that, and this gives them a profile so that when they do want to make their move, that they understand the profile of the person that they're hunting, how they're going to execute their plans of action, and how they're going to do it. And so these agent provocateurs, some of them are embedded in these groups and organizations, and some of them openly work with law enforcement. It's crazy. I know it's crazy, especially when you're talking about community organizations or cultural groups who claim to be on the side of the oppressed. Some of them claim to talk about decolonize, and yet they have people in their membership or in their leadership. They're actually part of the state and actually part of law enforcement. So unbelievable. So do your homework on different groups, and you'll be surprised that a lot of these agent provocateurs are embedded within these groups, and they just exist in them for years, and they're just feeding law enforcement information about all of its membership. When they need it to be guided, they need the group to be guided a certain way. Oh, they got people embedded inside the group that just guide it. Yeah, we feel that the group should do this because of this. They're part of the leadership. The whole group moves with them, and the lower membership usually are people that don't know. They go enter these groups or organizations for the right reasons. They want to help their people. They want to serve the community. They don't know that, you know, some of these groups, the leader, they're fully embedded with agent provocateurs or outright agents working for the state, proudly, So, this is something that we have to be on top of. I think anybody who is part of an organization is help building a political party, group, or organization. I think they need to have, a class strictly on agent provocateurs. Here's another thing: is the agent provocateur usually is somebody who comes from the community of the group or organization they work from. So it's not necessarily if I'm part of a group, in let's say in San Jose, downtown San Jose, or downtown, Albuquerque, or Los Angeles, what have you. If the agent provocateur is infiltrating a group in one of these cities, more than likely it's going to be a person from these areas, from these cities, from these areas. They're not going to recruit somebody who, is outside of the community, because nobody's going to trust that person. They're not going to trust the person because they didn't come from, and so the agent provocateur, many times it's people from the community who struggle just like them, grew up in the same barrios or same hoods, same projects. Their economic, background does not, it's not going to determine who the agent provocateur. They recruit from everywhere. They recruit from prisons. There's people everywhere, from all backgrounds, all social classes, that get recruited by the state to become agent provocateurs. So, so we can't determine who's an agent provocateur by, this person grew up in the hood, so it doesn't matter. They could be from any background, and in many cases, they're from the exact same backgrounds as people in the community. This is why they're trusted. This is why they're embraced, and they allow them in and give them information. When Fred Hampton Jr. of the Black Panther Party in Chicago, when he was murdered, it was his actual head of security, who was actually an agent, an informant working with the state, who was sent in to feed the police information. And this was his head of security. This is somebody that lived inside his apartment, lived in his place of dwelling. Somebody he trusted. He slept with this guy in the house. His chief of security. This is the one that's supposed to protect his life, and he was over here feeding information to the opposition, to the enemy. So this is why I'm saying is, and this is somebody from the hood, somebody, he was trusted, right? So this is usually how it works. So you got to be very careful. These agent provocateurs, they act like they're you. They may look like you. They may have tattoos like you, but they're not you. And they get this information, and they feed it. They feed it to the enemy, and then they do all these things that try to get you entrapped. And sometimes they're successful. Sometimes they can have people just totally neutralized and murdered. So it's very, very important that we all learn about agent provocateurs, and you can see their behavior. You see it very well, in most groups or organizations, you should have something called democratic centralism, and we'll talk about that another day. But you got to have unity within the group. And for people, of course, you're going to have debates and you're going to have differences and disagreements in private. But in public, you have to have that united front. Agent provocateurs, they work hard to break that. So their role is to create enough tension and in contradiction within a group so that they're split. So groups split off. Like, you know what? We can't do this, let's split off, or they have a specific target, and then they'll work very hard to persuade other members of the group to kick this person out. And they do that for a reason. That was their intended goal a lot of times from the beginning, is to get into these, into be in these groups, or when certain targets enter the groups, to get them out, because their interests are in opposition to the target's interests. So it's important. We learn a lot of our lessons, from other groups and other mistakes people have made. Somebody said, a smart person learns from their own mistakes, but an even smarter person learns from others' mistakes. So that's why studying history is very important. We got to study history in order to transform the future. And that's our biggest teacher is history. Learn from them, learn from the different movements and organizations and groups that suffered because of agent provocateurs. Learn some of the things that they did. Either at meetings, after meetings, you're having a meeting, there's disagreement, whatever. They see that the key targets disagree with others within the group over something. After the meeting, hey, give me a ride home. All right. They're in the car and they start getting in the person's ear, like, you know what? Yeah, the person shouldn't have, they should. Yeah, I don't agree with that. That's BS. They shouldn't. And they create this doubt and plant these seeds of doubt in these people. And that's why, after meetings, nothing should be discussed at all at any time with anybody within the group until the group converges once again. That's to avoid the agent provocateurs or just gossip and rumors getting out of hand, because it could spin out of control and create factionalism, and splits. So it's important that we understand these agent provocateurs, know what they do, know why they do it. So I talked a little bit about that. So what are some of the things that can be done? How people maybe and there's so much that can be done, but for the sake of this show, for the sake of this free Aztlan, let me just say, there has to be some action taken against agent provocateurs. There just has to be, because as I discussed, to allow them to exist and flourish, you're risking, dissolving the group. You're risking the group or organization being neutralized, basically being destroyed. So something has to be done. What can be done? The first step is education. That's the first step in defending yourself, right? Is knowing, understanding what you're defending yourself from. You can't defend yourself from anything if you don't know what it is. So the very first step in any kind of defense is in education, knowing what it is you're defending yourself. So in this case, agent provocateurs, the very first step is knowing what they are, knowing what they do, understanding how they operate, why they operate, what is their end goal. Once you got that down, their behaviors, basically it's like building a profile. profiling somebody, an agent provocateur. So you know all these little things that they do, these actions, these activities, these, gossiping, trying to create splits, offering illegal items, trying to get somebody to commit illegal acts, all of this kind of stuff. Once you identify all this and you're up on it, you're laced up, or however you want to describe it, you're up on it, you're educated on it. And you're in a group or somewhere and somebody pulls you to the side and they're like, hey, and they're talking to you about, and you start like, oh, wow, like all your flags are going off. Like, wait a minute, like, who is this person? How does this person have ties to this or that, or connections with this or that? Like, who is this person? Where has this person been? What has this person done? And if it's nothing, like, this person ain't done nothing, this person, and yet has access to all this stuff. Just, you got to evaluate. Every case is different, but once the flags start going off, like, wait a minute, who is this person? What's going on with this person? Once you get that done, you're going to know that you're probably in the presence of an agent provocateur. You're probably in the midst of one. And so then you can take certain actions to, so the first step is knowing, being educated on what they do, on what their behaviors are, their activities, how they operate, basically their methods of operation, their MO. Secondly, you don't want to alert the agent provocateur that you're on him or her. You don't want to notify the person. So, you're watching, you're keeping an eye, but, you're not allowing this person to know what's going on. Maybe you want to throw a couple of tests out there and to test the person. Is the person really trying to get me to commit these illegal acts? I mean, what's going on here? Like, and, and so that those are flags. Another thing is, I would definitely ensure that this person gets no vital information, anything that can be later used, in whether that's used in order to entrap you in a long court proceeding. I would avoid allowing this person to know anything that can be used or twisted around and misused in order to get you imprisoned. I would be very selective with what information I share with this individual. I may even share misinformation with the individual, and give the person information that specifically I want to see what this person does with it. And it would, of course, be untrue, not true. There's a lot of different things you can do. And then you can, do other things. You can bring it to the attention of others. You can, if you can kick the person out, you can, put the person under surveillance. You can, and you can do other things. There's a lot of creative ways that people handle agent provocateurs when they're identified. So, it's people's minds can just be as creative as you want to be, but there's many different ways to deal with an agent provocateur. And whichever way one deals with him or her, it has to be dealt with in some way, because if not, we've already discussed how these people can actually destroy a group or a movement. So they're very dangerous, very, very dangerous. And there is so many agent provocateurs. There's they have them, and some don't necessarily have to be working for the state, for police. They could just be working for themselves, but getting into certain groups or what have you, or be in the groups already and turn into agent provocateurs. Maybe they went in for the right reason, and then once they're in there, they start trying to, for whatever reason, they have disagreements with people. They don't like somebody speaking up. It could be many different ways that they want to target an individual and either get them out of the group or get the person arrested. It's a dirty game. So you got to be on top of it. And the future of organizations and groups that work in the interests of the oppressed relies on us knowing about agent provocateurs. We have to be on top of it. We can't. That's one. You don't want to miss. You don't want to let your guard down when it comes to that, because that can destroy a group or organization. So agent provocateurs are something that every member, I think, of a group or organization should be aware of, educated on. And we have to work very hard to have strict party discipline, organizational discipline, group discipline, to avoid agent provocateurs. So how can we avoid them? Well, one of the ways, as I would briefly touched on, is to ensure that people, for one, are not discussing group politics outside of the group. Once you leave the meeting or whatever, that's it, done. Like, no more. And everybody should be on the same page. That way, that eliminates agent provocateurs from sowing, trying to spread disunity, and so once people leave, that's it. I think that when people within a group or organization are attempting to get people to commit illegal acts, the hammer should go down hard. And if it doesn't, it's a very bad, it's a misstep, a very big misstep from the leaders of that group, because as I said, that's one of the biggest flags, getting people in the group to commit illegal acts. And that's, of course, to label the entire group as criminal. Also, it's used to target certain key figures in the group to get them arrested. So that's that's probably one of the biggest ones to watch on, to react. Leadership has to react when members are, and they should be told in the beginning when they get into these groups or organizations, hey, there's certain things we don't do. Here's why we don't do them. Don't try to get, members to do things they shouldn't be doing, because, you're going to be held accountable. And when people do that, they should be held accountable. When they're not, then usually that's the first step in the dissolution of the group, the crumbling. It's the decay of that group, because it's going to continue to happen. And as it continues, it's going to hurt the group or organization more and more and more. So that's one of the things that, to prevent agent provocateurs from being successful when they're spotted or heard of attempting to influence members of the group to do things they're not supposed to, they should drop the hammer hard on them. So that's another thing. It's just, and many times we will not be able to identify agent provocateurs. They're amidst us. They're amongst us everywhere. And you just have to be observant. And I believe that we can't supervise the entire activities of a group or organization, but we can supervise our own. And I think so. It all starts with everybody doing their part to ensure that they personally are not engaging with the agent provocateur. And if every single person was on it like that, the person will be spotted and identified immediately. The problem is most people, you can ask people in your group or organization, most people don't really know too much about an agent provocateur to really pay it any attention. And that's the sad thing. So the first step is education, and it's in getting every person in every group organization to understand, to thoroughly know what an agent provocateur is, what they do, why it's detrimental to the group, and what ways we can guard against agent provocateurs. And they're amongst us, and there always will, as long as there are groups, as long as there are organizations, political parties, any of the above, there will always be agent provocateurs. Always. So that's something that we have to understand, that it's not going to go away. And we should teach our members of our groups or organizations about agent provocateurs, and be on top of it. And if we don't do it, no one else will. And the only one that's going to suffer is the organization or group that we belong to. So very important. And in prison, people are on it. Like, you're not getting nothing past people in prison. Like, it's not going to happen. People are on it. They're watching, they're observing, they identify, and they deal with things very quickly and very well. And that's why agent provocateurs don't really last too long in prison. They don't really, it's hard for them to operate in environments where we're on everything. But out here, there's a lot of distraction. People are going about their business. They don't pay attention to details. And that's where they get wrong, because they slip on certain things. And guess what? People come in and they get some work done. So, you got to be on it. If you ain't on it, you're bad. Learn from your mistake, and so that's that. I just want to say, thank you all. This is Free Aztlan. I'm JV, and this is a show, YouTube show that I'm going to be doing. Some of you know about my radio show every Tuesday at 8 p.m. And you can listen from anywhere in the world at pourmagazine.org. That's one word, pourmagazine.org/radio. pourmagazine.org/radio every Tuesday at 8 p.m. And on my show, I talk about all things raza, anything to do with the Chicano nation or that affects raza in general. I discuss it. I do interviews on there. I have community leaders, people in our community within the Chicano nation who are doing positive things in the indigenous struggles, that are doing positive things for the people, even within the Black nation, all oppressed nations, people in the communities who are doing positive things to push the movement for social justice forward. I have them on, I interview them, I discuss political theory on there, I do book reviews, I play music. It's a very, very good show for those of you who haven't listened in. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Check it out, Free Aztlan Radio. And so the idea for this show, this TV station, was that I felt that the people shouldn't, have to wait until every Tuesday to get their dose of Free Aztlan. Free Aztlan should be accessible, as frequently as possible. And this is why I created this YouTube station, in order to bring the flavor, the estilo of Free Aztlan Radio to the viewers on YouTube, so that you can get a dose anytime. And that's something that I'm definitely dedicated on doing, to keeping the listeners and viewers, keeping them involved, keeping them aware, keeping them abreasted of what's happening, and what what affects the Chicano nation, what affects Aztlan, what affects our people, what affects all oppressed people, around the world. These things that we don't learn about in school, anything that the things that they don't teach us growing up in elementary, the things that we don't hear on the mainstream radio stations or on the news channels, all of the stuff that they don't talk about, that's what I talk about. I want to address issues in things that that you can't find anywhere else. Whatever the topic may be. And as somebody who understands and respects education and information very well, I spent a lot of time incarcerated, so I spent a lot of time learning and reading and absorbing and developing mentally different theoretical questions. And so, because I understand it, I also understand the flip side of that, of where I came from, where I wasn't taught none of that in school or growing up. So I understand that the majority of people never, heard of certain concepts and theories, and or struggles and movements. So this is why I feel that the community, in particular the Chicano community, needs to be aware of these things, needs to hear about it, needs to be educated on certain issues and certain concepts. And this is why I created Free Aztlan on the radio, and why I created Free Aztlan YouTube, to bring that to the people. I think it's very important. And if we don't do it, no one else will. We can't rely on anybody to inform our community. We have to, we have teachers and scholars within our community, within our nation, that has to help our nation, has to help our people. We have our own teacher. We don't have to rely on somebody with a piece of paper who works at this school or that school. We have school in the barrio. We have Glacha in the barrio. We have teachers in prison, that teach you things that you'll never know about in any school. People in prison study for decades every day. College professors, they go to school. I have a lot of friends that are college professors, but you go to school for 6 years or 8 years or what have you, you're a professor. You study every now and then, or your leisure time. People in prison been studying every day for 30, 40 years. So they've had, 5, 6 PhDs. They just don't have the paper for it. So my point is that within our community, we have powerful teachers. And so we have to tap into these teachers and learn the things that we're not learning in elementary and public schools. We have to teach our community. And this was one such topic that I felt should be addressed: agent provocateurs. And that's something that anybody who organizes, anybody in a group, organization, any kind of group, it doesn't matter if it's, political group or group of ballerina dancers, it doesn't matter. Whatever the group is, people need to be aware when you come together with people to address injustice, that you are going to have agent provocateurs infiltrate or attempt to infiltrate and do their work. So know who they are, know what they do, and continue struggling forward. And with that being said, I want to thank you all for listening to and watching Free Aztlan, Voice of the Chicano Nation.